Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys of Magic. This is Hunter and Steven. Say what up, Steven.
What's up, guys?
We are back doing another Precon upgrade. That is right in the $100 variety from Modern Horizons 3. This one is the big baddie everybody's been waiting for. It's the Eldrazi Incursion. That's right, Steven. You had the opportunity to go ahead and build this deck. But I just want to remind everybody that this is Ulalek, Fused Atrocity. We will be talking about the face commander and the way you build this one. If you guys wanted to see the backup, which is Azlask, check the description for our Patreon. We're putting up all of the $100 and $300 upgrades for all the backup commanders for every single one of these precons on our Patreon. So check the link, consider subscribing. But like I said, Steven, this is Ulalek. Go ahead and talk to me about the face commander and kind of what the deck wants to do.
Yeah, so the deck wants to copy big things. So what I will say is, right off the rip, doing a $100 upgrade to a Eldrazi deck is quite difficult. But it was fun. Having that restriction to kind of like have that low power kind of like upgrade kind of like showed me some cards that you probably wouldn't really think about throwing into a deck. So I definitely added some fun things. But yeah, Hunter, let's go ahead and get into the commander. It is Ulalek Fused Atrocity. This is going to be a mouthful to say right off the rip. I'm sorry, but it is hybrid colorless white, hybrid colorless blue, hybrid colorless black, hybrid colorless red, or hybrid colorless green as well. This is a legendary creature Eldrazi. It's a 2/5. It's devoid. So even though I said all those fun things, it has no color. It does say whenever you cast an Eldrazi spell, you may pay 2 colorless. If you do, copy all spells you control, then copy all other activated and triggered abilities you control. You may choose new targets for the copies. So we're casting things, we're going to copy them, and we're going to get double the triggers. It's going to get aggressive very quickly.
Yeah, it definitely is. And keep in mind, it's spells on the stack. So
hmm
it's not actually permanents you're copying. If there's any kind of trigger that you're activating, you copy everything that's on the stack if you're paying 2 colorless. That's
Yes,
kind of
I definitely, when I first read the card, I thought it was copying all the permanents on the field, and I was like, why would they put the other three precons out? It made no sense.
yeah, that'd have been really broken. But yeah, so it's everything that's on the stack, just as a little reminder. But you did mention that you did have a bit of a restriction with the budget because this set you wanted to put a bunch of new stuff in, right? But it's the volatility of these pre-order prices kind of prohibited that, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I really wanted to put the new Defiler in. I thought that would have been a great card in this deck, but it's $80, and you just can't really do that with a $100 budget upgrade unless I'm going to put that and maybe two lands in. So I kind of wanted to give the people a little bit more. Obviously, feel free to take your upgrades in whichever direction you want. The deck straight out of the box is super powerful. Adding like one or two pieces if you just want to continue to add just like some of the regular big boy Eldrazi's, it's not going to be a bad call. But obviously, we want to make sure that we're kind of doing certain things with our deck, and adding a little bit more flavor might be beneficial.
Yeah, being one of the favorite kindred types in all of Magic, Eldrazi tends to be quite up there in price. So maybe we'll see some of those brand new cards once they lower in price and also in your $300 upgrade. But this is the $100 upgrade. Let's go ahead and get started with these additions. Kick us off with some of these creatures you're throwing in this deck.
Yeah, so I added three creatures. We'll just go ahead and throw them all up there. So first one we'll talk about is going to be Conduit of Ruin. This is 6 mana for a creature Eldrazi 5/5. Whenever you cast it, you may search your library for a colorless creature card with converted mana cost 7 or greater. Reveal it, then shuffle your library and put that card on top of it. The first creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast as well. So I don't know if everyone at home knows, Eldrazi are huge in mana cost. So finding something with 7 or greater, not going to be that difficult. And then also just the benefit of giving us that first creature spell costing 2 less each turn. Like I just said, Eldrazi are massive when it comes to CMC. It's definitely going to be super beneficial to have this card in your deck.
Yeah, just go ahead and grab anything that might be enormous that you might want to play after this. Seems
Yep.
good.
And also the fun part, if you copy this while it's on the stack with Ulalek, your first creature spell will cost 4 less.
You're going to get 2 of them. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
What else you got?
So obviously Eldrazi are fun, but they're slow. You normally have to wait to attack with them. The Annihilator triggers, if somebody destroys it, it's not going to be that fun. Obviously, you cast this huge creature for all this mana, and then somebody just kills it. So how do you kind of get around that? We're going to talk about Forerunner of Slaughter. It is a black and a red. It also has Devoid, but it is a creature Eldrazi drone. It's a 3/2, and for one, target colorless creature gains haste until end of turn. Uh, I think this card's nuts. It's kind of crazy. You don't have to tap it. All you have to do is just pay that one, give whatever Eldrazi you like haste, and go ahead and ruin someone's day.
Yeah, this is one of those ones that I feel like should have been in the precon right away, and it just wasn't.
I the crazy thing to me is, kind of like I said earlier, usually Eldrazi's are super expensive, but this card coming in at 14 cents is kind of nuts when you think about the Eldrazi and the Devoid theme and kind of what you want to do and swinging as soon as you can. So, I mean, this is an automatic include in any Eldrazi deck in my mind.
Yeah, definitely.
And the last creature I added, I had to throw in one big boy. It is Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. This is a 10 mana legendary creature Eldrazi that's a 10/10. Whenever you cast a spell, exile 2 target permanents. It also has Indestructible, fantastic. And also, my favorite part on this card is the next piece of text. It is whenever it attacks, defending player exiles the top 20 cards of their library. Fantastic. I love Mill, but if I can just get rid of them altogether, let's do it.
Couldn't add the new Ulamog, but you can add this one, and this one is pretty mean as well. I like it.
Yeah, we have Ulamog at home here.
Ulamog has been at home the whole time. Yeah, that looks like all the creature package as far as the Eldrazi goes start getting to be some of these non-permanent spells. Looks like you got a sorcery here.
Yep. So I did add one fun one. This is Last March of the Ents. This is 6 and 2 green. The spell can't be countered. So hey, try. You can still try and counter it. It just will fizzle very, very fast. But yeah, draw cards equal to the greatest toughness among creatures you control, then put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Do I need to say anything? Eldrazi, big, drawing a lot of cards, putting a lot of things on the field. I think we know what we're doing here.
Yeah, cheating at Eldrazi is always fun. You don't get those cast triggers, but the damage they do when they're on the field is also just insane, man.
Oh yeah.
All right, I see a couple of artifacts here too.
Yep. So we do sometimes want to play things for free. We always say here at Guys That Magic, free spells are the best spells. So Darksteel Monolith is going into this. This is 8 mana for an indestructible artifact. It does say once each turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for a colorless spell you cast from your hand. So fun part is we're still going to get those cast triggers and we didn't have to pay anything.
Yeah, that's like you said, free spells are always good. Darksteel Monolith is really good in this deck.
Yes, yes, it is. The second artifact will be Idol of False Gods. This is going to be 2 colorless for a Kindred artifact Eldrazi. So fun enough, you can copy this with Ulalek. It does say you can pay 1 in a colorless, tap it, create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token with sacrifice this creature, add a colorless. And then whenever another Eldrazi you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Idol of False Gods. As long as it has 8 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it's a 0/0 creature in addition to its other types, and it has Annihilator 2. So this deck has a really fun sub-theme on cast triggers and ETBs of creating spawn tokens. So the fact that this just says whenever another Eldrazi and not a non-token Eldrazi dies, this can get huge really quickly, and by the time it gets back around to your turn, it could be huge. And then giving this Annihilator 2 as well was just the icing on the cake.
Yeah, that's one of these cards that came from the actual set. You did it. You fit in a brand new card. I like that.
Yep, I did.
One of those ones that are uncommon that felt like should have been included into the precon itself. So
Yes.
but I do see another new card. Let's move on to the enchantments. What are we doing here?
Yeah, I feel like I couldn't not add this card into this deck. I mean, Panharmonicon has always been a fun card, so why not make a Panharmonicon for some Eldrazi fun? So this is Echoes of Eternity. This is 3 and 3 colorless for Kindred Enchantment Eldrazi. Again, being able to copy this with Ulalek is going to be kind of fun. If a triggered ability of a colorless spell you control or another colorless permanent you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. And then whenever you cast a colorless spell, copy it, you may choose new targets for the copy. Fantastic.
Yeah, definitely 100%. Um, yeah, guess what Ulalek does? It goes nuts with this card.
Yes, it's perfect for this deck. It is fantastic to get a possible two copies of this, and then you're just if you get two copies of this with Ulalek out and nobody deals with you, your next turn is going to be insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like this card a lot. It's a great include here.
Yeah, so let's get into some more fun ones here, Hunter. So I did add Shadow in the Warp. This is one, a red and a green. The first creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast. Cost reduction in this deck is going to be super beneficial to us. Also, I do love the static ability here. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, Shadow in the Warp deals 2 damage to that player. So obviously we're going to be smacking with some big Eldrazi's, maybe some small ones, but if I can basically make my first creature cost 2 less to cast each turn, and then whenever you guys play your first spell, deal a little damage on the side. Pretty good.
It is pretty good, man. I like Shadow in the Warp here.
And then I will be moving on to my favorite card in this deck, and I do say that wholeheartedly. This is my favorite card out of the 100 that I am adding here. So, Spreading Plague. This is 4 and a black. Whenever a creature comes into play, destroy all other creatures that share a color with it. They can't be regenerated. Funny enough, the devoid word keeps coming to mind. No color. Oh, this is insane. And you know, Hunter, I think my favorite thing about this is it's whenever a creature comes into play. So it's not even on my turn. If you cast a creature card and it comes on the battlefield, you're probably killing all your stuff. And same thing for your opponent and your other opponent. This card goes nuts in this deck. And I honestly think it's perfect.
Yeah, man. I can't believe how well this works with your colorless spells because they are not a color, so they won't be affected at all. You are definitely spreading a plague to your opponents.
Yes, very much so. Next up, we have Teamer Ascendancy. This is a green, a blue, and a red. Creatures you control have haste. Going to swing in hard and fast. And then whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. Obviously, we have pretty much nothing but creatures with power 4 or greater. So this card was an automatic include in this deck. And then the last enchantment I will be adding in here would be Up the Beanstalk. Whenever it enters the battlefield or whenever you cast a spell with a mana value 5 or greater, draw a card. Like I just said on the last one, we are casting some big boys. We're going to be drawing a lot of cards. I did notice with goldfishing with this deck, card draw was a little off. So I definitely wanted to make sure I could get some extra card draw in where I could.
Yeah, that makes sense. Up the Beanstalk has been really good ever since it's been printed. I see it a lot in Standard too. So I like the include here. And finally, it looks like you touched the land department just a little bit. What's going in here?
Yep. So I did add 2 lands. I did add Scavenger Grounds. It is a land desert. You can tap it for a colorless, or you can pay 2, sacrifice it, and then exile all graveyards. I do know some of the decks that are in the Precon do have some graveyard recursion, and they care about graveyards. But to be quite honest with you, I think after talking with David a few times and just seeing precons from the past and what we've played, I think having a little bit of graveyard hate in your deck, whether it's Bajuka Bog or stuff like this, is kind of necessary nowadays in Magic.
Yeah, graveyard strategies. You might find one every time you sit down and play.
Yes. And the last land is probably the best land in the deck, to be honest with you, is the World Tree. It does enter the battlefield tapped, which is never fun. It does tap for a green, but it does have a really fun static ability where as long as you control 6 or more lands, lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. Now, granted, obviously we are trying to play more into the colorless theme with our mana, but a lot of the devoid creatures still have mana colors to cast them. So with this deck, basically having all sorts of different colored lands, being able to say, I'm going to tap this green for a red because I can now, is pretty beneficial. It also does have some flavor text down there: 2 white, 2 blue, 2 black, 2 red, 2 green, sack it. search your library for any number of god cards, put them on the battlefield. We don't have any god cards in here.
Ignore that
Although
part.
I'll ignore it. Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, man, even though your deck is colorless, they're colorless in the way of devoid, which means you still have to cast them for a color. The World Tree definitely fixes that issue. But that it? Is that gonna do it?
That is going to be all of my inclusions, yes.
All right, man. I like them a lot. I think the deck is gonna look terrifying with all these new additions. But now is the time that makes everybody sad. We have to take that precon and remove some cards to make room for all these awesome additions. So go ahead and talk to me. What are we cutting out of this deck?
So let's talk about the elephant in the room here. And by elephant, I mean Azlask. I am going to be getting rid of Azlask, which I know a lot of people might be a little upset about. But for this deck and what it wants to do, casting creatures with huge butts and huge front ends, it didn't really make too much sense. I mean, I like what it does, and we do make a lot of spawns. But for the purposes of this deck, it didn't really make too much sense. I also got rid of Elder Deep Fiend. It is a fun card. It's got Flash, which will always surprise somebody, but Flash for 8 mana is a little aggressive. It does have a Merge, which is pretty fun. And then whenever you cast it, you can tap up to 4 target permanents. I kind of see the funness of this card, where if somebody's about to swing at you with some really big creatures, hashtag Shane with the Goyf tribal deck, getting to combat, you can flash this in, but why would you want to hold up 8 mana on your turn when you could do some fun stuff with it instead and maybe kill Shane first? I don't know. Who knows what we'll do. And I know I'm going to get the comment already. You could flash this in for the emerge cost for just the 2, but why would I want to get rid of a creature that I definitely wanted to copy rather than, this? I just, sure, I could tap 4 target permanents and then copy it again, but you're not really casting the copy, so you're only going to tap the 4, not 8. So I understand the emerge cost here, but most of the time we're going to try and sack our spawn tokens, and they don't have a mana cost, so no.
Fair enough. What else we cutting?
We're getting rid of Endbringer, which I was not really sure about. It's a pretty fun card. It does untap during each player's untap step, and you can tap it to deal 1 damage to target player. You can also pay 1, tap it. Target creature can't attack or block this turn, and then you can pay 2 to draw a card. I know I've kind of talked about the card draw in the deck a little bit and how it was a little off. The cards we added definitely helped us out. I did get rid of like 1 other card draw engine in the deck, but this one wasn't really that beneficial for me. And for 6 mana altogether, I'd rather would just play something else that could really help me out. Dealing 1 damage to any target is meh.
Meh.
At most.
Meh. I see 3 more creatures. What are these ones?
Next up, we have Oblivion Sower. It's 6 mana for a lot of whiff potential here. When you cast a spell, target opponent exiles the top 4 cards of the library. Then you can basically put any number of land cards that player owns from exile onto the battlefield under your control. Sure, let's say the best of best days, you hit 4 lands off the top of their library and you get 4 lands off of it. But with the whiff potential and this deck not really exiling a lot of cards, hashtag I couldn't add Defiler because it was $80. I didn't really find a point. And then again, when you copy this with Ulalek, you're not getting that cast trigger. So you're just getting another 5/8, which isn't bad. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad. But I just didn't really need this in this deck.
Yeah, I see why it's being removed here. Just like you said, the whiff potential.
Twins of Discord's up next. It is 7 mana for an 8/6. It says whenever you attack, choose odd or even. Creatures with mana value of that quality can't block this turn. Each other colorless creature you control has Bloodthirst 2. Bloodthirst, for the people at home that don't know, if you deal damage to an opponent, the creatures that enter the battlefield on your secondary main phase will come in with 2 +1/+1 counters because this has Bloodthirst 2. This would be a really fun card that I'm keeping in the $100 Precon upgrade for Azlask. But in this deck, it's not that beneficial. To be quite honest with you, I understand why you wouldn't want your opponents to be able to block with certain creatures. But we have Eldrazi. Like, who's going to be bigger than an Eldrazi?
It's pretty terrifying.
And the last creature I'm getting rid of is kind of a sad one. I actually really liked this card when I saw it for the first time, but this is Ulamog's Dread Sire. This is 10 mana for a 10/10. It's got Vigilance. It's got Ward, sacrifice a permanent with mana value 1 or greater. Super easy to do, to be quite honest with you. I mean, what a terrible Ward cost. But the best part about it, you can tap it, create a 10/10 colorless Eldrazi creature token. Uh, since we only have a couple cards in the deck that give us haste, I like this card, and I like the fact that I can make 2 of them, which would then make 2 more, and then 2 more. I like the fact that it has vigilance, so you can swing and then tap it, and then have a blocker. If I put a card back in the deck, it is 1,000% this card. I will not lie. But again, for what the deck's wanting to do and not really getting like any ETBs or cast triggers, I kind of wanted to just, this was probably the last card that I had to cut. And I know I can already hear everyone at home, this card's insane. And it is. I do enjoy it. But you would need 12 mana total in order to cast this and copy it. And then you have to hope that you have a haste enabler on your field to do what the thing that you want to do with it. And then you have to go 3 turns essentially, because you got to go around and hope that nobody exiles this or destroys it, because this doesn't have indestructible. This doesn't have, protection other than the ward. And 9 times out of 10, this ward's very easily payable. So.
All right, Steven, that is going to do it for all of the creatures that you're removing. I am seeing you also removed 3 sorceries. Let's talk about those ones.
Yep, Hunter, I did get rid of 3 sorceries here. The first one up is going to be Selective Obliteration. This is 3 and 2 colorless for a board wipe?
Question mark?
Quotations. Each player chooses a color. Then exile each permanent unless it's colorless or it's only the color its controller chose. That is quite the tongue twister. I will not lie. There's a lot of editing that went into this one, and I said that like 6 times. But yeah, I like this card. I think it's a pretty fun pseudo board wipe, but everyone's just going to choose the color that benefits them the most. So it didn't really make much sense. We have All Is Dust in the Precon already, and that's like the best board wipe in this deck.
Yeah, this one is just kind of letting your opponent decide what to keep.
Skittering Invasion is up next. This is a tribal sorcery Eldrazi. I know what you're thinking. Ulalek could copy this, but 7 mana just to create 5/0/1s. Granted, if you do copy it, you will get 10, which is pretty fun. But, to be quite honest with you, I don't really find a point of this card being in the deck. I think in the secondary commander for the Patreon video, definitely needed. But for the point of this deck and what we're trying to do, it's out of here. And the last sorcery is going to be Ugin's Insight. This is 3 and 2 blue. You get to scry X, where X is the highest mana value among permanents you control, then draw 3 cards. I see the potential here where you can scry a ton and then find the 3 cards you want. I don't know. 5 mana to do that, and then basically, hopefully you have enough mana to do something else. I don't know. I'd rather just do the cool thing then, rather than set up to do the cool thing later.
Yeah, and you got some enchantments that give you card draw, so one-time effect like this is not worth it. But yeah, those are your sorceries. Let's move back over to the permanents. I see a single artifact.
Yep, Idol of Oblivion. I like this card. Obviously, we're making some spawn tokens here and there, depending on what we're casting that turn. But for 2 mana, you can tap it, draw a card, activate only if you created a token this turn, and then you can pay 8, sack it, create a 10/10 colorless Eldrazi creature token. I normally always keep this card in any kind of token creation deck. I just, like Hunter said a second ago, I've added card draw into the deck, and I get to do that while doing really cool and fun things. So just went ahead and got rid of this one.
Yeah, this is because your commander also makes tokens of anything that it copies. I can see why this card was in the deck, but now that you've added up the beanstalk, you're just getting a free card draw every time you cast something, so you don't need to even make the token. And finally, I see we added some lands. What are we taking out?
So this deck comes with 38 lands, and for everyone that knows me so far in the Magic the Gathering community, all 4 of you probably, I love playing with the fewest amount of lands possible, and I will get rid of lands before other cards. This deck is very mana intensive, so I definitely did not try and cut too many lands. After all the cuts, we're at 37, so just 1 less. But yeah, First one up is going to be Bonder's Enclave. This can tap for a colorless. You can also pay 3, tap it, draw a card, activate only if you control a creature with 4 or greater power. Obviously, most of the time we're going to be able to use that pay 3, tap it, draw a card. On a land, it's just silly. I just didn't really find a point. Plus, this also does not tap for any colors that we might need for any of our devoid creatures. So, in the bin. Next up, we have Opal Palace. Same thing, tap for a colorless. You can pay 1, tap it, add a mana of any color in your commander's color identity. If you spend this mana to cast your commander, it enters the battlefield with a number of additional +1/+1 counters on it, equal to the number of times it's been cast from the command zone this game. I don't like the filter effect. That's just me. Also, our commander just wants to copy stuff. It doesn't really care about swinging, although it can. And it's always nice to try and kill somebody with commander damage, but that's not what this deck wants to do. We want to copy stuff. And that is why this card is gone. And the last land is going to be Ruins of Oran Reef. It enters the battlefield tapped, which was an immediate removal for me. But you can tap it for a colorless, and you can also tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on target colorless creature that entered the battlefield this turn. Kind of fun, but you know, our creatures are Eldrazi. They're huge already. Why do I need to make them bigger?
It's true. Good point. All right. Is that going to do it for all of your additions and cuts? Is that your $100 upgrade?
That is my $100 upgrade, Hunter.
All right, Steven. Well, you know the drill. We have given you $100 to upgrade this deck. What is the price of the deck at the time of the recording?
To be completely honest with you, Hunter, I've had to basically wait to make this video because each day I updated to cheapest on Moxfield and it just continuously went down. So when I first looked at it, we were at about 120. Prices have been going down drastically. So currently we're at $107.29. I know I'm over budget technically, but this is an Eldrazi deck. You need just a little bit more money.
You know what? At 107 with the pre-order prices, I'll give it to you. These prices should 100% come down. We saw it with Modern Horizons 2. They dropped like 58% within a week. So I can only imagine it'll do the same. But I like it. I like the deck. I'm terrified to play it. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Yeah, final thoughts. I was super excited to get this deck. I love 5-color anything, and that's why I really wanted it. The biggest issue I have with it is the cost restriction of the $100 upgrade that we do, to be quite honest with you. There are a ton of fun cards, and I'm not even talking about like the super powerful ones like Rhystic Study or Sweathering Tithe or Cyclonic Rift or anything like that. There were so many cool cards that got released that are colorless or devoid of color for this deck. In this set, and they are so expensive. That would probably be my only gripe, to be quite honest with you. Other than that, I think Ulalek is a cool Eldrazi commander, and I think he's probably going to be earning a place in my opinion, probably one of the best colorless Eldrazi commanders.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, Ugin's Binding is $50 at the time of recording.
Yeah.
Ugin's Labyrinth's $80. The prices are just way too much, and they fit very well in the deck. I understand what you're saying. But like I said, I am terrified to play this deck. If you guys haven't already, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel to stay up to date with everything that we've got going on. You don't want to miss out on all of these upgrades. We are going to be seeing a $300 upgrade to this deck as well. So stay tuned for that, as well as all the gameplays and all the other stuff we do. Comment down below. Did you agree with Steven on this upgrade? Maybe he missed something that he probably should have added, or he took something out that you didn't like. Let us know in the comments down below. Also in the description, you will find his Moxfield link to see the entire deck list. If you wanted to play test it, fool around with it, check the cards out, link down below. While you're in the description, you'll find links to all of our social media accounts. That's TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, @GuysThatMagic for each one. Follow us on those as well. On the screen right now, those are all of our Patreon subscribers. Thank you guys so much for your added support. It means the world to us. Like I said at the beginning, we are doing the backup 100 and 300 for all of the Precon decks. So if you wanted to see Azlask, check the link in the description for our Patreon and consider subscribing. And until the next video, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Eldrazi big.